Welcome to the Mentor mini-series on teaching scripts and Chalk Talks. Episode 4, Clear Organization. Think back to when you were an intern. You were always in a hurry, had a long to-do list, and typically felt crunched for time. I bet you were a lot more willing to learn from an attending whose teaching was concise than from one who rambled on. So how do great teachers keep their teaching scripts and Chalk Talks concise? Every Chalk Talk or teaching script should have 5 essential structural components. Number 1. Start with a hook. Number 2. This is the most important. Every Chalk Talk and teaching script should have take-home points that are clear, concise, and limited in number. These can be introduced in the beginning and reinforced later, merely hinted at in the beginning, or can simply be introduced throughout the talk. Number 3. For each take-home point, consider an illustration, example, or application to help learners understand it, particularly for longer Chalk Talks. Number 4. Ideally, each take-home point should use a strategy for engagement and recall. Number 5. You should end with a summary of your take-home points. Beyond these 5 components, the organization of a Chalk Talk or teaching script can take many forms. Some teachings may be organized around a case presentation, some around a story that runs throughout, others around a series of intentionally scaffolded probing questions with a Socratic intent, while others may use a mental framework as the organizational backbone of their talk. Let your creativity guide you for what you believe is best for each topic. Utilizing our 5 key components, the most standard organization looks like this visual outline. Please feel free to hit pause to review. While this is a common way to organize your teaching, this is just one way to match your organization with our 5 key organizational components. There are many other ways to do this. So, what does this look like in real life? Here's a 2-minute teaching script putting these principles in action, utilizing the following 4 take-home points. Take-home point 1. Hemoptysis kills people from asphyxiation. Take-home point 2. Massive hemoptysis is best thought of as any amount of blood that scares you. Take-home point 3. The broad differential diagnosis for hemoptysis can be thought of by 3 questions. And take-home point 4. The 5 Bs incorporate most airway causes of massive hemoptysis. Let's start the teaching script. Why do we care about hemoptysis? Why does it worry us? That's right, because it kills people. But how do people die from hemoptysis? Good thought, but it's actually not from bleeding out. Believe it or not, it's from asphyxiation. You only need as little as 70 cc's of blood to clot the proximal airways. Massive hemoptysis has various definitions, averaging 500 cc's per 24 hours. But because no one measures their own hemoptysis, just think of massive hemoptysis as the amount that scares you. Once you recognize massive hemoptysis, which is often accompanied by soiling yourself, building and assessing your differential diagnosis is paramount. To do so, ask yourself 3 questions. 1. Is it coming from above the airway, indicating oropharyngeal causes like epistaxis and oropharyngeal bleeding? 2. Is it coming from below the airway, specifically causes of diffuse alveolar hemorrhage? And 3. Is it coming from the airway itself? To remember the causes of hemoptysis originating from the airways themselves, you can use the mnemonic, the 5 Bs. The first B is bronchiectasis. The second, bronchogenic carcinoma. Next, not 3B, but TB, tuberculosis. The fourth, ball of fungus. And lastly, bronchopneumonia/bronchitis. Of the 5 Bs, the first 4 are the common causes of massive hemoptysis. To summarize, massive hemoptysis is best thought of as any amount of blood that scares you. The broad differential diagnosis for any hemoptysis, minor or massive, can best be thought of by the following 3 questions. Is it coming from above, that is, oropharyngeal bleeding? Is it coming from below the airway, like DIH? Or is it coming from the airway itself? To remember the airway causes of hemoptysis, think of the 5 Bs. Later, we'll have a Chalk Talk on the differential diagnosis of DAH, and tomorrow, we'll talk about the management of massive hemoptysis. And that ends the teaching script. To see other examples of how teaching scripts can be organized, click these links. Here is one teaching script structured almost entirely on intentionally scaffolded probing questions, or Socratic questions. This example uses a story to drive home a memorable, single take-home point, And this Chalk Talk on pulmonary embolism risk stratification and management leverages a chart as a mental framework to simplify what can otherwise seem like fairly complex information. In summary, clear organization is critical to ensuring your talks are concise and easily understood. There are 5 key structural components to keep in mind when organizing your talk. 1. You should start with a hook. 2. Take-home points should be limited in number, clear, and concise. 3. For each take-home point, consider an illustration, example, or application to help learners understand it, particularly for longer Chalk Talks. 4. Ideally, each take-home point should use a strategy for engagement and recall. And 5. You should end with a summary of your take-home points. Beyond these principles, there are many ways to structure your talk. Be creative and choose what you believe is best for each topic. Happy teaching!